j'ai du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
He not only was charged, he pled guilty. The case is over. He was pending a sentencing. That's all that remained. So dismissing at this point is really unusual, and there is no public interest in doing so. There is one case called Cowan where the Department of Justice tried to dismiss because they were transferring the case to another jurisdiction. It was actually a Watergate case. It was against Conley, and the witness who was going to testify against him in D.C. had a charge pending for the same kind of crime in Texas federal court. And so as part of his plea bargain, that case was to be dismissed, and the court said the public interest in having him testify justifies dismissing it. He hadn't pled guilty. It wasn't over. It wasn't pending sentencing. And there was a public interest in allowing him to be prosecuted somewhere else. This would be unheard of. This is a clear cover-up. Yeah. It's because probably Flynn knows something that Trump does not want revealed, and he's trying to protect him. So this is a big cover-up. It should be one of the biggest scandals of this administration, and because of COVID-19, we're not hearing enough about it.
Yeah. And the New York Times editorial board wrote that they called it a perversion of justice. And they said among the key reforms of Watergate were stronger transparency and ethics rules, like the creation of independent inspectors general to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in the executive branch. Mr. Trump has been firing inspectors general. He thinks they're not loyal to him. There were also new limits on presidential power, like the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act. And Trump broke that law last year, according to the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office, when he withheld hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine. So, I mean, there's not as if this is an administration that very much believes in the rule of law. But I want to play for all of our guests, William Barr himself, explaining himself in a way that I think might be one of the most chilling things that I have ever personally heard from an Attorney General of the United States. Take a listen.
When history looks back on this decision, how do you think it will be written?
Well, history is written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
Michael Isikoff and David Corn, I'm going to send this to you. You guys wrote Russian Roulette. You guys have written about this whole period and era in American history. This man, William Barr, does not seem to care about history other than that he believes that the regime will be vindicated because the regime will write the history. That's how that sounded to me.
Well, it certainly is a power makes right argument, right? That there's no concern for the greater issues at stake here. We have our history, the paperback edition's coming out in a couple of weeks, and I think we're going to keep fighting over this. But what's frustrating is that we keep fighting over some very basic details. Have you heard William Barr say anything about the fact that the Russians attacked the election in 2016 to help Donald Trump become president? Because that's what's really at the core of this. And that's the history that Donald Trump wants rewritten because it taints his presidency. And it's not just history. In February, the FBI director, Chris Wray, and just this past week, John Ratcliffe, the congressman who is an ardent Trump defender who Trump picked to be his next director of national intelligence, have both said that the Russians are still intervening in the ongoing 2020 election. So we're not just fighting over history, we're fighting over some fundamentals about American democracy. And Barr has clearly shown that he's on the side of whatever works for Trump and not what's in the interest of American democracy.
Yeah, he's the hand of the king. Michael Isikoff, Naveed Jamali, who writes for Newsweek and is a good friend of the show, wrote the following about him. He said the threat has been neutralized. He said, here's where I'll disagree with Frank Figliuzzi, another tweet that he did. Counterintelligence is not about justice. It's about neutralizing a threat. In that regard, the counterintelligence efforts were successful in stopping the further recruitment of Flynn by Russia, meaning that getting rid of him, having him plead out, meaning he likely won't be able to serve in another administration. The warnings about him are now on the table as to the threat of him. In your view, in your investigation, what threat did he pose to U.S. national security, if any?
Well, I want to make a couple of points. One of the extraordinary things about the decision to drop the charges against Michael Flynn is not a single career prosecutor at the Justice Department signed that motion to the judge asking that the charges be dismissed. It was signed by one man alone, Timothy Shea, the political appointee who's the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia. It was based on a recommendation of Jeff Jensen, the U.S. attorney, the political appointee in St. Louis, and approved by Barr, a political appointee. So it is, in my many years of reading Justice Department filings, I cannot remember seeing one in which not a single career prosecutor puts his name to it. So that gives you an idea of how unusual this was. But just to get the larger context here, remember what this case was all about. It was Flynn lying about his conversations with the Russian ambassador, which were directly after Obama had imposed sanctions on Russia for its attack on the 2016 election and announced that the Obama administration was going to be kicking out multiple Russian diplomats as punishment. Flynn then tells Kislyak, don't worry about that. We'll revisit it. Please don't respond. And what leaps out to me about this is that was the first real sign that the new Trump administration was going to start undoing everything Obama had done. It started with that. It continued through the Affordable Care Act, through the climate deal, through the Iran nuclear deal. One by one, Trump seemed determined to undo everything that Obama had done, which is why I think these comments from Obama, which I should point out we published exclusively on Yahoo News Friday night, that's where you got them, were so, leap out, because clearly Obama is speaking to, legitimate policy reasons about the rule of law, but there's also sort of a larger context of him watching Trump undoing everything that he had done as president.
It is Monday, the 11th of May of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. Oh, we've sliced and diced, cubed up a few items as well, and now we've concocted it. We've repurposed all of that from all the meals over this holiday weekend, and conjured up a lovely gourmet dish of information and food for thought. Hey, how are you? Are you surviving still in this lockdown? I don't call it a lockdown. Come on. It's sheltering in place because we care. And when I see people wearing masks, I know that they care. And those that don't, who give you the dirty looks, obviously they don't care. They wear the t-shirt that say, F your feelings, ask me if I care. Do you? Be best. Be best at, grinding the lessers under the heel of your iron boot. Oh boy. What is it when corporations and government are tightly wedded in a common purpose? I'm trying to think what that's called. It's kind of from Europe, I believe, and it's just right on the tip of my tongue. Okay, there's some owners of really deep-pocketed big businesses, and others just, I don't know, maybe just the common investor is tired of these brown people and their hangers-on slacking around and not making money. I mean, this economy has ground to a halt. I don't know. Maybe the whole world has to go. It's not going to work. They have no understanding of how we are already in the beginnings of a second wave of infections, and we will bring that up in a part of the news read today. We're in trouble, folks. And the reason we're in trouble is because here in Oregon, it's Kate Brown's fault. Okay? And I suppose in Washington State, it must be Inslee's fault. I know in California, it's Gavin Newsom's fault. And worst of all, it's Nancy Pelosi's fault because she encouraged people in San Francisco to get Chinese dinners in Chinatown. I don't know. Is there a Wuhan wet market there at, Columbus and Stockton? Columbus and Stockton. Yeah, I guess they do come together at some point. Right there at the old U.S. Cafe. Is there a wet market anywhere, either in Chinatown down there by Montgomery Street or over in Clement Street? I'm trying to find a Wuhan wet market somewhere in which a coronavirus could spread around everywhere because of Nancy Pelosi. And if you bring up the racial component, of course you know the first reptilian response is, why is it always about race? Similar to this poor kid Aubrey running down the street, jogging. And yeah, he looked into the new construction there because that new construction's been going on for years. And people look in and walk around looking at the progress. People take their babies in strollers. That's a whole different story now, isn't it? But it's all part of a whole. As Bill Barr said, or what he meant, is that yes, there's only one kind of justice in America, and you ain't in it. Ooh, will we be able to even have an election in November? Will Bill Barr allow it? You know he's going to present a secret OLC memo that says any election that threatens the power of the President of the United States named Donald Trump, well, that will not abide. And it says it right there in the OLC memo. We all know OLC memos trump, no pun intended, the Constitution of the United States, even the Magna Carta. No one in Trump's orbit, and when I say orbit, I mean like people here in Southern Oregon who are blaming Nancy Pelosi for the spread of coronavirus because she encouraged people to not be racist and go have some chow mein at the Empress of China. Is that still open? Those people who live in that orbit, will they question any of this? They may. Eventually, I don't know. Now, of course, the big argument here in my little hamlet, my little burg, and I don't mean that. Yes, I do. I mean it in all of its Teutonic glory. Yes. The prevailing opinion among the folks in Trump's orbit is that because Jackson County's only had 49 confirmed cases and no one's died. And certainly no one's died in Rogue River. Do you know anybody who's died in Rogue River? Do you know anyone who's even has the virus? Well, I do. Not in Rogue River, but, I'm related to folks, either directly or by marriage, unfortunately. And I mean that, unfortunately, the people have coronavirus, not necessarily by marriage. But in some cases, yeah, that too. Yeah, my younger sister kind of picked a few. Well, she's a great gal, but some of the guys, I always let my sisters make their own choices. And, of course, that's where I first started trademarking the term, I told you so. I wish I'd been collecting royalties all these years. Wow. I'd be able to probably fund the whole pandemic response that Trump won't fund. Anyway, prevailing opinion is that because here in Rogue River, no one's died, no one has it, then it really doesn't exist and it never happened. Now, I did bring up rather obliquely a couple of points. One was, did any like passenger jets take out the VA hall there on Main Street? I was wondering if any had in Rogue River on 9/11. Any passenger jets happened to make a controlled crash to blow up the VA hall in Rogue River on 9/11? Well, unfortunately, there are some people who actually believe that 9/11 didn't happen, and because it didn't happen in Rogue River, apparently it didn't happen anywhere. I mean, that's that kind of mindset. I brought up the idea of individual rights. Now, apparently there's an individual right to get infected and to infect others, apparently, with this crowd of I don't care, do you? F your feelings. I brought up just, Mount St. Helens. And that one guy in Mount St. Helens who said, hey, pyroclastic flows are a hoax, and any government and any jackbooted cop that tries to make me move out of here, I'm gonna. And so everybody backed off, and there was a bunch of his supporters said, he's so prescient. He's like, knows the secret of the universe. We have to follow this little guy. And they did. They just sort of like, set up camp, took photos, even folks from 20 miles away on a ridge, lookout point. Hey, we'll take a picture of this guy, protesting the man. And so then when finally people realized, these rumblings are really moving the ground a lot. We got to get the hell out of here. So when they did finally hightail it out of there, that guy was vaporized. And all those people that dallied about just, breathed 5,000 degree hot lava and suffocated on the blazing hot gases. So then I had the argument of, well, that was their individual right. At least they died doing what they wanted for freedom instead of living like sheep. And I'm saying, are you serious? You really want to breathe in 5,000 degree lava for freedom? Well, no, they want other people to breathe in 5,000 degree hot lava and point to them as being exemplars of what freedom is. No, they're dead. They're stupid. Freedom is not about being stupid. All right? If someone's drowning, I'm not going to ask them or even consider that it's their right to drown. I'm going to save their ass. I guess because I care. I don't know. If you don't care, F your feelings. I'm saving your ass anyway because we're Americans. If you don't want to be, too bad. We're in America. I'm still saving you. I might even do it over there. I might even jump right into the Volstagg River and save your ass because you're having dinner with Vlad. Got some bad borscht. got a little dizzy. Maybe it was the vodka. And then you fell in and I saved your ass. I'm going to do it. Who wouldn't? I can tell you a few people who wouldn't. Well, Mike Pence has to quarantine himself because he finally caught something from a woman he wasn't alone with. And Mother knew. Yeah, boy, they have an outbreak of COVID-19 in the White House and they want to open up America. Now we know where all the masks are going. Well, we already knew that in the beginning anyway. They got first dibs on everything on the tests. I love how Trump goes, gave this, Stephen Miller's wife the test, and it was, negative. Then all of a sudden, it, turned positive, and I don't know, you can't trust tests. My first wife had a few pregnancy tests, and they were negative until finally they just turned positive. And you know what else? Surprise, she had a baby. How'd that happen? Such a surprise. Does this guy really have the vaunted intelligence, by osmosis because his uncle taught at MIT? I don't think so. I don't think it works that way. It's not nature, buddy. It's nurture. All right? God, imbued with some sort of conscious intelligence about the workings of the universe, and he can run everything. Yeah, that's working really well, isn't it? What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, of course, at the top? The dropping of the Flynn case. Well, Barr is just basically showing that he's clearly covering up Trump's crimes, and it's designed to help Trump. Of course it is. Every single bit of it. He wrote an application, hey, I know how to get you off, as like an op-ed, and they published it, and Trump read it. On the rest of the menu, Trump is lying about kids being safe from COVID-19. Yeah, they're getting these weird symptoms like thickening of their arterial structure and in their hearts and their it's not just their lungs. It's weird stuff. Chuck Schumer called on the Department of Veterans Affairs to explain why vets were used as guinea pigs to test Trump's vanity drug. Well, Trump figured, hey, we exposed them to radiation and, when we were dropping the bomb in the Bikini Atoll. Did he say atoll? So, hey, just give him some hydrochloroquine. And they did. And Trump is counting on Kavanaugh and Gorsuch to help him cover up his taxes and bank records. Well, we all know that the John, I'm only a balls and strikes umpire, Roberts, never calls a foul ball on the home team, and you can rest assured with this tax and bank record case, he won't only keep from calling a foul ball, he's going to turn it into a home run. Oh, yeah, it was just this side of the foul pole. Just this side. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where South Korea is scrambling to contain the predicted second wave outbreak of coronavirus in the densely populated capital city of Seoul. Yeah, they're number one in the world keeping coronavirus down, and they got the second wave, just like the models predicted. And Malta's ambassador to Finland resigned after he came under fire for comparing German Chancellor Angela Merkel to Adolf Hitler. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. In a previous incarnation, in a different, I don't know, bubble of universe that we existed in before Donald Trump took over. We didn't have these long rants beginning our show, but we do now. So it's okay. Mondays are a little tough because Nicole doesn't put her What's News up, and sometimes I don't have enough time to grab Radio International and all of that. So hey, this is the way it is, and there was plenty to rant about it. It was the weekend, and this is River City Hash Mondays. Well, if you would go to the bottom of the homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice to the rightish of the page our chat room link right there by the social media scroll. So do engage, and Kelly takes care of the chat room link, and I'll tell you about Tom in just a moment. But if you would take a look to the leftish of the page at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com from the chat room link, our Patreon link is there. And if you could please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. I know it's tough during this time, and I want to thank folks who upped their contribution for us. I know that you had, that was only temporary. I understand that. But thank you for continuing at your previous level. And, boy, we sure needed a little bit of stimulus fund directed our way. We didn't. Networks Radio doesn't apply for that stuff. We don't do that. But anyway, thank you for your help, and thank you for continuing your help. We are able to pay our bills, and that's how we're able to broadcast Resistance Radio and have for over 9 years, going on 10 years of 24/7, 365 Resistance Radio and broadcasting 24/7, 365, because the founders originally intended for us to do that, and your civic duty is helping our civic duty. Thank you. I don't know. It makes sense in some bubble universe somewhere. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio, and that's where Tom comes into the picture, because Tom takes care of that platform, plus so much more in terms of, graphics and a lot of other things, too. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Kelly. And if you would follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime, and then post that up on social media so people can, find it on social media. That's why it's there. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. I never mentioned my Sunday music show, the Justice Department Music Sans Frontières. Music Without Borders. And check it out. I put that up on podcast, too, and link that up on social media. And, download that and share it with your friends. It's soothing. It's sheltering-in-place music with a theme. That's how we do it. Okay, we better dive into what we have curated here for you in the salon we call West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And, of course, we're in the Bistro Cafe, and all those cookbooks that are lining the walls from floor to ceiling in a very well-lit space. Yeah, the secrets of the universe are there. Trust me. Okay. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy comes our way out of the American Independent. And if it would please load, I will tell you that it is by, it's by the Associated Press. I guess I should have got this from the Associated Press, but I got it from the American Independent instead. Donald Trump is falsely suggesting that children are safe from coronavirus as he pushes to reopen the country now and schools in the summer or fall. Although Trump is broadly correct that the disease is mostly deadly to the elderly and to people with existing health problems, his statement that the children aren't affected is heedless. Some have died from it. His recent comments also skirt the threat to healthy adults in their 50s and younger. Now, Trump said, with young children, we'd like to see the schools open early next season and on time. It's incredible how it's very unique how the children are affected. But people that have problems and older people can be very badly hurt, injured, or die from this problem. Yeah, well, those were remarks he had with Native leaders last Tuesday in Phoenix. And then he told some nurses on Wednesday, you see how well children seem to do. It's incredible. We realize how strong children are, right? Except they are now tracking a weird, mysterious disease connected with coronavirus, but is not COVID-13. Or it's a mutated form of it, and so it's, when I say COVID-13, I mean COVID. Yeah, that should be unlucky 13, COVID-19. So maybe it's COVID-20 now. And little kids are having these weird, clotting in the brain and in the heart. And it's just icky. What's up with that? And we're not hearing that because the numbers will hurt his campaign. Now, his suggestion that children are in the clear is false. To say they do very well with the disease is generally more accurate based on what is known so far, and since they don't test. Now, that's a complaint I have in Rogue River when they say, we don't have any deaths. Have they tested any care homes in Care Home County, Oregon? Come on. His implication that the risk is limited to the old and sick is incorrect. It is true, kids get sick less often than adults and tend to be less ill when they do get sick, but his statements overlook severe COVID-19 illnesses and deaths of children, and they gloss over the fact that kids can spread the disease without showing symptoms themselves. Well, if I was Michael Crichton and I was writing some weird novel about this, and I needed some super spreaders, Oliver Twist, all the way up to Stephen Miller's wife, would be the super spreaders I'd be writing into my book. Hope Yen and Michael Balsamo of the Associated Press bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. The Senate's top Democrat, come on AP, yesterday Sunday called on the Department of Veterans Affairs to explain why it allowed the use of an unproven drug on veterans for coronavirus, saying patients may have been put at unnecessary risk. Yes, they were. Charles Schumer of New York said the VA needs to provide Congress more information about the recent bulk order of $208,000 worth of hydroxychloroquine. Trump has heavily promoted the malaria drug without evidence as a treatment for COVID-19 because, like a miracle, it'll just go away. Schumer's request comes after a whistleblower complaint filed this past week by former Health and Human Services official Rick Bright, who alleged that Trump administration, eager for a quick fix to the onslaught of coronavirus, wanted to flood hotspots in New York and New Jersey with the drug. Major veterans organizations have urged VA to explain under what circumstances VA doctors initiate discussion of hydroxychloroquine with veterans as a treatment option. There are concerns that they are using this drug when the medical evidence says it doesn't help and could hurt. Well, since the VA is run by those three guys sitting at a table in Mar-a-Lago, you know exactly how it's going to turn out. also of the Associated Press, brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Trump is hoping to persuade a Supreme Court with two of his plants, his court-packed Supreme Court, to keep his tax and other financial records from being turned over to lawmakers, and a New York District Attorney. The justices are hearing arguments by telephone tomorrow, Tuesday, in a pivotal legal fight that could affect the presidential campaign, even with the coronavirus outbreak and the resulting economic fallout. Rulings against Trump could result in the quick release of personal financial information that Trump has sought strenuously to keep private. Strenuously now. Some might even call it illegal. The justices have been hearing cases by phone this month in an effort to help slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. 6 of the 9 Supreme Court justices are over the age of 65. Now, joined by the Justice Department, Trump is appealing lower court rulings that determine subpoenas issued by the House of Representatives and the Manhattan District Attorney to his longtime accounting firm and 2 banks for years of tax returns, bank records, and other financial documents are valid. Trump is advancing broad arguments to try to stymie House Democrats. In the case involving the criminal investigation launched by District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr., Trump is asserting that while he holds office, he can't even be investigated. His Supreme Court arguments draw on law review articles that will be very familiar to one member of the court. At the end of the day, a president who is concerned about an ongoing criminal investigation is almost inevitably going to do a worse job as president, Trump's lawyers told the court, quoting from a 2009 article by now Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Well, we know that the Trump-appointed Kavanaugh previously worked as independent counsel Ken Starr's investigation of President Bill Clinton, which led to Clinton's impeachment in 1998. Kavanaugh is quoted 5 times in Trump's main Supreme Court brief in the Vance case, and Gorsuch is the other high court appointee. Trump has so far lost at every step, but the records have not been turned over, pending a final court ruling, which they hope, and we know, that since Brett Kavanaugh likes beer, he's easily bought off. Gorsuch, well, now the subpoenas are not directed at Trump himself. Instead, House committees want records from Deutsche Bank and Capital One, as well as the Mazars USA accounting firm. Mazars also is the recipient of Vance's subpoena. Appellate courts in Washington, D.C. and New York brushed aside Trump's arguments and decisions that focused on the fact that the subpoenas were addressed to third parties asking for records of Trump's business and financial dealings as a private citizen, not as president, as if that should stop them. 2 congressional committees subpoenaed the bank documents as part of their investigations into Trump and his businesses. Deutsche Bank has been one for the few banks willing to lend to Trump after a series of corporate bankruptcies and casino bankruptcies, I should mention. And that's since the early 90s. Vance and House Oversight and Reform Committee sought records from Mazars concerning Trump and his businesses based on payments that Trump's former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, arranged to keep 2 women from airing their claims of affairs with Trump during the 2016 presidential race. Okay, let's get to our break, and late as it is, and when we get back, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, there are some Stargirls waiting in the sky. When female directors Bert and Bertie think back to their childhoods, they don't remember movies about girls banding together to adventure. So today, they've joined up with scriptwriter Lucy Alibar and have made the quirky comedy Troop Zero. Troop Zero is set in the fictional poor small town of Wiggly, Georgia. The biggest fiction, by the way, is that it's the late 70s, and Wiggly is impossibly integrated with no racial tension. That's part of this film's fantasy. You just have to go with it. So like I said, it's 77 and the Voyager spacecraft are about to launch with gold records containing greetings from Earth's children, and NASA has come to Wiggly. Why? Because the winning scout troop in the Birdie Scout Jamboree will be this country's voice. Enter 9-year-old Christmas Flint, played by McKenna Grace. Christmas has recently lost her mom, and her father, comedian Jim Gaffigan, has told Christmas that her mom is up in space with the stars. So of course, Christmas must be on that record, and it's going to take her father's assistant, Viola Davis, who is also a producer in the film, and a cobbled-together troupe of fellow outcasts to win the Jamboree and get on that record. They must beat the perfect Pretty Mean Girl troupe, then mothered by the meaner Miss Massey, played by Allison Janney. Our troupe needs badges in challenging gender roles for women and men, celebrating their own unique worths, and overcoming both the environmental and personal stressors that would keep them from banding together. Troop Zero is a story about following dreams. It's a story about resilience. It's a story about asserting that you deserve to be seen. It's a movie packed with principles and goals, but the Berts and Alibar hold it all together with a little bit of hand-waving, and without it being heavy or preachy. Unless you're in the KKK, you hate Ziggy Stardust, or you're advising Mike Pence on conversion therapy, Troop Zero will be a feel-good movie for bad-feeling times. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
The discovery of penicillin in 1928 by Alexander Fleming was one of the greatest scientific achievements of the 20th century. It's hard to imagine a world before the development of what many consider to be miracle drugs. However, just 90 years ago, antibiotics weren't available. Thanks to antibiotics, some common illnesses such as strep throat are now easily treated, whereas in the past they often led to serious complications. Antibiotics serve an important role in keeping you and your loved ones healthy, but it's important to remember that antibiotics only treat bacterial infections. Most common infections such as colds, flu, most sore throats, bronchitis, and many sinus and ear infections are caused by viruses and do not respond to antibiotic treatment. These infections can be overcome by simply treating the symptoms and letting the illness run its course. Unfortunately, antibiotics have often been overused, resulting in decreased effectiveness and an increase in antibiotic-resistant diseases. Antibiotic resistance, or the increased ability of bacteria to survive in the presence of antibiotics, has become a major public health threat that we all need to help fight. When a person takes antibiotics, they are at risk for possibly having a bad reaction to these drugs. Some side effects can be quite serious, or even life-threatening in the case of an allergic reaction or severe diarrhea. This is why it is very important to only use antibiotics when they are absolutely needed, and not for viral infections. Talk to your healthcare professional about the best treatment for your illness. If it is caused by a virus, follow his or her recommendation for treating the symptoms. Learn more about appropriate antibiotic use and how to feel better when you don't need an antibiotic by visiting CDC's Get Smart, Know When Antibiotics Work website at cdc.gov/getsmart/community.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com,
Show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Here's how I feel about the value of our nation's postal service. The humble post office is a community fixture, a civic inheritance, a rural lifeline, and one of the last vestiges of a shared civic culture in America. Tolerate it, treasure it, and don't let the vicissitudes of global capitalism, contempt for government, or a viral outbreak take it away. Those are my sentiments, but not my words. They're from the American Conservative magazine, calling on people of all political persuasions to save this vital public institution. The men and women of the Postal Service have been steadfast in their duties, especially in times of national emergencies, literally delivering for the American people. In today's terrible pandemic, these workers have kept communication and commerce flowing. No matter who you are, how rich or poor, living in teeming inner cities or isolated rural reaches, postal employees are on the job, so you and I can get our mail, medicines, food, household necessities, election ballots, and other basics brought right to our doors. The stamp is cheap, yet the wear, tear, and costs for the postal workforce can be high. For example, about 1,200 of them have been infected by COVID-19, and at least 44 have died. Yet, the entire public system is now under direct attack by a man-made pestilence called Trumpista vitriolitis that's emanating from the White House. By controlling a $10 billion line of credit that the post office must have to get through the current coronavirus depression, Trump is demanding cuts in the wages, benefits, and rights of our stalwart postal workers, plus authority over hiring top postal officials and the right to raise postal rates. This is Jim Hightower saying, to help stop Trump's power play to become America's postal potentate and privatizer-in-chief, go to the American Postal Workers Union at usmailnotforsale.org.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1967. That was the day United Farm Workers Sons of Zapata joined with the Confederation of Mexican Workers in establishing an international picket line across the Rio Grande Valley. A push to organize farm workers at 6 major growers began the year before, in the spring of 1966. Wages in Starr County ranged from 40 to 85 cents an hour. Farm workers began their strike in June of 1966 for wage increases and union recognition. But growers would rather see their crops rot than recognize the union. They did grant wage increases, but immediately ran to the courts for injunctions. One district judge outlawed all picketing, while police instructed county workers to spray the strikers with insecticide. That August, workers voted to organize with the United Farm Workers and began a pilgrimage march to the state capitol to popularize their cause. 15,000 workers and their supporters reached Austin on Labor Day to demand their right to organize. They returned to Starr County to continue their strike. The growers turned to Mexican commuters holding green cards to break the strike. The United Farm Workers began picketing at Roma and Rio Grande City bridges and were often successful in turning back green card workers. By May 1967, melon harvest had begun. After months of negotiations, picket lines went up on both sides of the international bridges. The picketing was 100% successful for 2 days, but the Mexican government and Starr County Sheriff's Department soon intervened to break up the picket lines. Texas Rangers were brought in to arrest and brutalize strikers. The strike was broken, but organizing continued throughout the region. Picketing across borders was itself an important act of international solidarity. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Well, we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a temperature much lower than our 88 yesterday on Mother's Day. Also, my mom's birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday, Mom. She's reached the milestone of 83 years old, and she's not only kicking, she's punching. She's giving black eyes right and left because she's a tough woman, and we love her. Anyway, Saturday was 90-something. Whoa. But we do have quite a bit of rain expected today, a tad early from what was originally forecast over the weekend. Rain showers this morning with some sunshine during the afternoon, and then partly cloudy this evening, followed by increasing clouds with showers developing after midnight. Expected about 1/10 of an inch today and tonight, and then almost 1/4 of an inch tomorrow, with even more coming through the rest of the week. Oh my. Well, overnight lows should be in the mid-50s. Daytime highs today about 72 to 75. Expecting only a high in the mid-60s tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. Jackson County's confirmed coronavirus cases stands at 49 because they can't test here in Oregon. There are no tests. And you can't blame Kate Brown for that or Nancy Pelosi, please. And deceased remain at none, but like I said, they're not testing. How do they know? Grass pollen right out in front of the mothership is moderate. The air quality index for the whole region is good at 42 parts per million. I don't know how good that is, but some people think it is. And the daytime UV index is high at 6. Barometric pressure is holding steady right now at 29.76 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 71%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 53 and fair, and Boris Johnson's not really wanting to open up the country all that quickly, though he hasn't given much guidance, and Labour is really quite incensed over it. Paris is 57 and sunny, with some lifting in the suburbs from the coronavirus lockdown. Rome is 74 and sunny, with an increase of coronavirus that some people might call the second wave. Kyiv is 81 and fair with coronavirus. Kabul is 65 degrees with showers in the vicinity. Also, coronavirus everywhere. Hong Kong is 75 degrees with a light rain and thunder, and people violating, really, social distancing, and they don't care about coronavirus. We'll see how they fare. Tokyo is 70 degrees and clear with a lifting of some sanctions because of coronavirus. Sydney, Australia is 50 degrees and clear with some lifting of sanctions because of coronavirus. San Francisco, California is 51 and fair with some coronavirus. And New York is 53 degrees and cloudy with coronavirus. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Yanxi Shin and Josh Smith of Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. South Korean officials scrambled today to contain a new coronavirus outbreak, searching for thousands of people who may have been infected in a cluster of cases linked to nightclubs and bars in the capital, Seoul. South Korea has been lauded for its quick, effective action on its epidemic, significantly reducing the rate of new infections in recent weeks, but the resurgence of cases has raised worries about the expected second wave of infections. Officials reported 35 new cases as of midnight last night, the second consecutive day of new cases of that magnitude, and the highest numbers in more than a month. 29 of the new cases were linked to several Seoul nightclubs and bars. Authorities have tested more than 2,400 people who went to the night spots in the Itaewon neighborhood, but we're still trying to track about 3,000 more. Hundreds of other people who came into contact with club patrons have also been tested.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Malta's ambassador to Finland resigned after he came under fire for comparing German Chancellor Angela Merkel to Adolf Hitler. Malta's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in an emailed statement. When accepting the ambassador's resignation with immediate effect, Minister Everest Bartolo stressed that the ambassador's comments on German Chancellor Angela Merkel were not representative of the friendship and mutual respect between Malta and Germany. Michael Zamet-Tabona wrote in a Facebook post on Friday, the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe, that, quote, 75 years ago we stopped Hitler. Who will stop Angela Merkel? She has fulfilled Hitler's dream to control Europe, end quote. Zamet-Tabona, a businessman and political appointee, right-winger, by the way, who was appointed in 2014, could not be contacted for comment, and one wonders why. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Cohen. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum.